That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Ramey. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. If you're looking to quit or cut back on your drinking, we have one of the best 30-day alcohol-free challenges out there. It's helped hundreds of men all over the country quit drinking, become better fathers, better husbands, better leaders, all the good stuff. You can sign up for that. You can check out all of our other podcasts and additional resources by going to thatsoberguy.com. And then be sure to follow us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. Our guest today is Mr. Jesse Daniel. And Jesse is a country music artist. He's known for a relentless work ethic, lots of live shows. He's actually on a large tour right now, touring all over the country. He's got this true-to-life songwriting style, man. I just dig it. A lot of that old-school country style, which I'm so happy to hear is making such a great comeback today. And comes from a rural mountain town on California's Central Coast. And first explored his passion for playing music and playing drums in local punk bands. And he just celebrated 7 years clean and sober. So we're going to talk, of course, a bit about that today. And then also announced a new album coming up, Countin The Miles, and that's going to be due out June 7th via Lightning Rod Records. And it's got a single on there titled Workin Hard, Day and Night. It's a great jam. Definitely highly recommend you checking that out. Tip of the hat to the legend Merle Haggard. And it's also featured on Netflix as the theme for comic Dusty Slay's new comedy special, Workin Man, which my wife and I actually watched not too long ago, and it was pretty dang hilarious. So recommend checking that out too. Jesse, it's great to have you on the podcast, man. Appreciate you taking some time with us today.
Absolutely. Great to be here, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So there's so much stuff I want to ask you today, and obviously want to get into what recovery's like, that sober lifestyle, how you're able to do that, what that looked like before. I wanted to start, we had a couple requests, kind of how you and I hooked up today, and a question from Marcel that came in. He was one of the cats that recommended having you on the show today. And Marcel said,
"Oh, right on."
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to read a question. I had him tee one up here, and I thought it was a good one. So,
sure.
Let's see. So more and more artists are adopting a sober lifestyle. He mentioned Tyler Childers, and then we just had Walker Hayes on the podcast recently. My good buddy Mike Tuck, I think, has over a year sober these days, just crushing it. Lots of other great artists out there too, living that lifestyle. So have you noticed a kind of changing of the guard as more artists embrace the sober lifestyle?
Man, that is a great question. I have, I think that it has become in recent years more of a socially acceptable and socially accepted thing within the realm of the music industry. And there's obviously a lot of different kind of tentacles to the music industry. There's the creators, the people that are actually talented, and then there's a lot of like the more business side, of all those things. But I think for a long time, within the business of it, it wasn't really marketable or cool to be clean and sober. I mean, people like a dumpster fire. They like something they can't look away from, or that's sensational, and whether or not that's conducive to a healthy life for the artist, and you see that with a lot of the tragic stories of movie stars and musicians and people who it's kind of destroyed them. And so I think there definitely has been a big shift, with the guys like you mentioned, and there's been a lot of people that are more outspoken about their being clean and sober in recent times, and that's something that I feel really passionate about, and that I've been kind of proud to, put at the forefront of my career as a main reason for any bit of minuscule success I have. It's because I'm clean and sober, and I wouldn't be here without it, and I would most definitely be dead, if I wouldn't have made that change in my own life. So I think there is kind of a change of the guard,
Yeah.
so to speak, and I think more people are becoming open-minded to that and not seeing it as a sign of weakness, because I think that was
Mm,
the old way of thinking,
yeah.
and people are becoming awakened to the idea that it's actually a strength. It takes more strength to be able to, push forward, facing life on life's terms versus, uh, you know, using a crutch.
Yeah. Amen to that, man. That's so good. And it is, man. It's hard to not escape. You know, it's hard to not
Sure.
want to escape sometimes even. And so a lot of good points you bring up there. You know, the first thing that came to mind was, you know, throwing chairs off of rooftops in Nashville bars. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's guys out there,
Sure. Sure.
you know, and obviously a headline that was not, you know, not too long ago. And those are, but you're right though, to a point, those are the things that, um, you know, that make people talk sometimes in headlines and create that, you know, that thing. And it's sad at the end of the day, actually, because from just a human
Mhm.
being standpoint, it's not really serving any good, positive purpose. You know what I'm saying? In the long run. And so
Sure.
kind of the caveat to that too, he kind of had a follow-up question here, and I think it's pretty relevant too. So how is this, like,
Mhm.
being sober really changed the day-to-day life for you, especially while you're out on the road on a tour?
Man, it has changed it, dramatically. I remember, when I first started touring, and making music, I wasn't even doing it professionally when I first started because I had a day job. Um, but it kind of led me in the beginning that my dream was to be doing it full time and
Yeah.
to have that be my lifestyle. But I did it for a couple years while I was still drinking, and for me, my problem was drugs, but alcohol always kind of led me back to the drugs,
Yeah.
and so I would toy with the idea of being able to drink like other guys I knew and try to play my shows, and it just for me, it just did. There was no way that I could have, maintained that and had the level of productivity that I have now, and the drive. So day to day, I get to wake up in the morning without hangovers or without being dope sick or
Mm.
any of the issues that people who are stuck in that have to suffer, and that I've suffered personally. I don't have to worry about going to jail after a show driving, down the
Yeah.
road. I'm doing nothing wrong. So I think too many ways to count. It's impacted my life in so many ways. But on the day to day, it's just waking up with a clear head and
Yeah.
being able to exercise. Eat better food. Make just better life
Mm.
choices. I think that's kind of what contributes to the longevity of having a career.
Yeah.
It really in anything, anything that you want to put your heart into, it takes kind of a clear head to really stick in it for a long time.
Yeah, sure. Sure. And you bring up a good point. Like, as we get older, just like you even mentioned, like food, I think of just exercise, fitness, just generally trying to stay healthy. And
Sure.
as like I'm 40, hold on, I'll be 43 in July, and I'm not getting any younger. And like your 20s, like you party, man, I partied like crazy in my 20s, my 30s, you know, it starts to, like, you start thinking about stuff. And then in your 40s, you realize, like, damn, I'm going to die one day. Like, I'm not going to live here
Yeah.
forever. You know, and it's a
Sure.
reality. It actually sets in. And I think about my kids and my family, and like you really start thinking about what's important, and you have this general want and need to want to take care of yourself and take care of your body and your mind and your spirit and all that stuff. And it definitely,
Right.
like, one of the key things to do, we can't put poison in our bodies if we, you know, if we want to have some success at that. And especially for a guy like you who's out traveling, you know, we have a lot of musicians, a lot of artists who listen to this show. Like, what are a couple tips that you
Mhm.
have, like, while you're on tour? Is there anything specific? Obviously, you're playing, you know, in places where there's alcohol and there's a lot going on. And do you have any, like, little tricks or tips or anything you would share with folks out there?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've got a few. Well, one big one is not eating after the show for
Mm,
me. 'Cause I used to, even in recent years, being sober, clean and sober, a lot of the time, like in my mind, the way that my brain works, I'll kind of justify other things, other pleasurable things that I could have, when everybody around me is drinking or using drugs, I'll be like, oh, well, I deserve to have a cheeseburger after the show, or I could do this or
yeah.
that, and that kind of stuff, those
Yeah.
little, like, I read this book called Atomic Habits recently, and that really changed a couple years ago. I read it,
Mm,
changed my thinking, because he talks basically about these small habits every day, little choices that
yeah.
compound and add up, and so if you're eating a cheeseburger every single night at 2 a.m., that adds up to not feeling very great, and for me not looking very great. um, so I started cutting that out. I started just paying a little bit more attention to like what I was eating and when I was eating during the day. And I noticed that, and everybody's different too. If you feel great eating a huge meal right before you go on stage, then do that. But for me, uh, I can't eat like a couple hours. I've got to eat at least a couple hours before I play. And then I
Yeah.
try not to have anything heavy afterward. And that is like a game changer for having energy level on stage and being able to give the people like the kind of show that I want to give them.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Drinking a lot of water on the road, I try to do that. I try not to overdo the caffeine, although I am not very good at that. I drink a lot of caffeine when I'm on the road because it kind of increases as you get more and more tired. Um, but yeah, just kind of being more vigilant of like the daily choices that you make,
Yeah.
and that's something that's helped me a lot. Just to be checking in with myself on a daily. Another big one is exercise. Even
Mm,
if you're staying at a mid to low level hotel, a lot of times they'll have like a fitness center with a couple dumbbells and like a treadmill. And even if it's bad weather or whatever, I try to just get onto that treadmill and walk for a little bit at the very least, or do some
yeah.
some weightlifting or whatever I can to kind of get my blood flowing. And that just drastically improves the way that I perform and the way that I feel, and my mood, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, man. That exercise and the diet, all that stuff, all goes hand in hand. And when you're traveling like that, a lot of folks don't realize too, like that is that's so tiring. It's very taxing, just constantly moving, and then you have to perform.
Oh
You put a
yeah.
lot out. You leave a lot out there, and so you have to find ways to fill yourself back up. And I love how you pointed out too, like the little wins. It's those little wins, and they add up, and it's okay to celebrate them along the way. Hey, I didn't eat like dog crap today. I ate pretty dang good. That's like a win.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
those days add up. And the same thing, with staying drug free, staying alcohol free, same kind of concept.
Hmm. No, that's
What's
exactly it, man.
I was listening to a little bit of My Kind of Country live at the Catalyst, man, and I haven't got through the whole album yet because I just kind of set on it. But Soft Spot, what a great song, man! Just I had that on repeat yesterday. I listened to that one a few
Thank you.
times. Yeah, man, I love that. Was that personal experience? I'm assuming, and just some of that old stuff, kind of before you got sober, that you were talking and sharing about, or any thoughts on that, or that whole live album? You could tell there's a lot of energy behind it.
Yeah, yeah. That song in specific, that's from my first record. We went ahead and played it because it's kind of a fan favorite. We put that on the live record also, and that song is definitely, it's kind of partly truth and partly fiction. It's a fictional story about a guy who ends up getting into kind of like a police sting type situation and goes to prison. Um, but I wrote that basically, from my own perspective of being, addicted to drugs and just kind of going where the next opportunity leads you, and that's kind of what happened in that person's story,
Yeah,
and back in my addiction and stuff, you end up just spending a lot of time with people that are on the same path as you, just like if you're in sobriety or recovery, and you're
Mm.
surrounding yourself with those people, it's kind of the same. When you're in that addiction, you're going to be around other addicts or other people who are kind of on that level. And so, I'd find myself I started getting locked up in jail a lot, started going to rehabs quite a bit. And a lot of the guys that I met in there were just these uh, old school California prison dudes, who had their Merle Haggard tattoos, and they were really, in a lot of ways, inspirational, in good and bad ways, because
Yeah.
some of these guys had pretty crazy stories, and they'd tell me these stories of things that they had done, and I would get back out there and I would try to almost kind of, one up that in my mind, or
Mm.
it was the wrong kind of influence or inspiration, but a lot of those guys looked out for me, and they were great dudes. And I'd say soft spot for the hard stuff is like one of those kind of amalgamations of all of those stories that I kind of gathered from some of the guys I used to know.
Yeah. Love it, man. Great song. Um,
Appreciate it.
so I wanted to learn a little bit more too about your background with punk music. Like, how did that transition into like more traditional country music? And I know, like for me, man, dude, the '90s, it was such an amazing time for the punk rock scene, especially in Northern California. I mean, we were out in the Bay Area, we were in Sacramento. I mean, you had so many different bands that were just, there was just a great scene then, and a lot of great
Sure, yeah.
live shows. What was that like for you? And then was that kind of, how did that lead into you becoming, full time musician and really embracing the country sound?
It for me, the punk rock music and the hardcore and all that stuff, that kind of was when I was, an early teenager. That was my first type of music that was really my own, because my dad
Mm.
was a musician growing up. He played in a lot of classic rock cover bands, and that's really what he raised me on. But he also played in some country bands, and so I was influenced, a lot by old school country and uh,
Yeah.
and classic rock, But when I got a little older, um, you know, aside from the fact that it was like my dad's music and I wanted to do my own thing, um, it was also, like you said, kind of wildly popular in the 90s and 2000s, to listen to that music. It was just it was in pop culture. And then as you dug deeper, there was all kinds of other stuff
Mm.
that was coming
Yeah.
from California, where I was from, that really inspired me. There was this kind of raw emotion type of music that was really, uh, really angry, and
Yeah.
really kind of packing a punch. And that's how I felt. I felt angry, and I wanted to
Mm.
go to these shows. And I remember the shows, we'd go see bands like Dr. No, and these shows were wild and they were violent, and there's people getting their
Yeah.
asses kicked. And it was this thing that I was like, oh, this is awesome. It was this kind of wild time to be alive type of feeling. And so I think that was my first real genre and place that I could kind of put some of those negative emotions and things I was going through into.
Yeah.
And so I was a drummer, and I ended up playing in a lot of local bands, from kind of like just pop rock bands to punk rock bands to like more old school hardcore stuff. Pretty much whoever would have me, I would play drums. And then as I got older, I started filling in for my dad's band a little bit, here and
Mm.
there whenever they didn't need, or whenever his drummer couldn't make it. And so I got, the chance to play that classic rock stuff and some of that country stuff. And as I, it's a real long story, but as I got to the point in my life where I was beaten down enough, I'd gone through a lot of years of addiction and all this stuff. Um, I just realized that I didn't see much of a future for myself in staying alive, really in
Yeah.
that realm, of punk rock and stuff. And I still love that music, and I've got a lot of friends who still play it. Um, but country music just was kind of like the music of my soul. It called to
That's
me,
good, man.
and yeah, it saved my life at the end of the day because it was something positive that I could put my
Yeah.
energy into.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. And thank you for, explaining that and breaking it down a little bit, because I do believe that there's such a bridge between the two genres there. If you look at cats like David Allan Coe, um, Johnny
Oh
Cash,
yeah,
Merle Haggard, those were punk rock dudes to me. They're like the punk rock of country back in the
absolutely.
day. They were just
It's true.
hard-nosed dudes, just and so I think there's a really close connection there, between those two like genres. And then, man, to your point of just being angry as a kid, we hear the
Hmm.
term let go a lot in recovery, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. We got to let
Sure.
go. It's very common term. Most folks probably out there with any type of recovery experience have heard that. I remember, and I've shared this story before, but I remember being at my first show. I was like 14 or 15. My buddy Ray Penny was there, and there was just this massive pit going, and it was a little room. And it was hot and sweaty and musty, and I was angry as a kid, man. Just a broken home and just all that stuff going
Yeah.
on. And my buddy looks
Same
at me and
here.
he goes, "Yeah." And I read that actually in your bio too, and I was like, "Man, yeah, that's we have a lot of this stuff in common." And but he goes,
Oh,
he
for
goes,
sure.
he looked right at me and he said, he goes, "You just gotta," "You just gotta let go." And I'm like, "Man, okay."
Yeah.
And I let go, dude. And I just had it was the most amazing experience, just letting all of that shit out right in that pit right there.
Yeah.
And from there, it was just like I was hooked after that. And, music was a
Oh yeah.
huge part of my life going forward. And I think there's a lot of kids out there who feel like that. But we just have to learn that, we don't have to embrace the other side of that, like alcohol, drugs. Like, how many straight edge kids did you know, or do you know
Exactly.
still until this day? I mean, that's a huge movement too.
It is, and that's the thing too. I don't mean to say that that form of music is what I was running from, like the punk rock or hardcore or whatever, was a bad influence or something. Because
No,
there's
totally.
tons of
Yeah.
straight edge kids, and I knew a lot of older guys who were playing that music that were, they were like into Buddhism and and meditation and stuff, and they were
Yeah.
living super, otherwise
Clean.
healthy lives. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there was a lot of good aspects for it, but I think that for me at that point, like it just I needed to also geographically, where I grew up and everything, I needed to kind of break those chains that I feel like I'd kind of made for myself, and
Mm,
through country music, that was always a thing that I had liked all through high school growing up. um, but I just felt a calling toward it, and I felt just like you said, that kind of same feeling of just letting
mm,
go and just kind of letting yourself letting go of all that BS, or trauma
yeah.
or stuff that you're going through. I felt that same feeling when I started writing country music and playing it
Mm,
for people, and getting that feedback from people, having them clap or sing along or whatever.
yeah.
Um, so it just kind of naturally shifted into that for me.
So would you recommend, or would you say that writing, for you, and I know it's a big tool for me. I know a lot of folks out there in recovery too. Writing is a really great tool to put pen on paper and get some of that crap out that we're feeling. Do you use that as a form of therapy, a form of healing, and how's that impacted your recovery and ability to stay sober?
Definitely, dude. I definitely use that quite a bit, in my own music. Um, writing, that's kind of what it started out for.
Mm,
I'm sorry, that's what it started out for me as, was a form of therapy before I had any prospects whatsoever. Um, to doing this as any kind of a career or anything more than a hobby. It was kind of just like
yeah.
a cathartic, pen to paper type of thing. And, I still do that, even if it's not a song that I plan on doing anything with. A lot of times, like I'll just write on my phone, or, a notepad or whatever, and I'll just kind of write down ideas that come to me when I'm on the road.
Mm.
And journaling, I do a little bit of that. I try to just kind of write down thoughts or emotions as they come to me. And it's crazy how just getting that stuff down onto paper, onto your phone, can kind of unburden you from, feeling those things at that time and kind
Yeah.
of get you through it. But yeah, writing music has been a huge cathartic thing for me, and it's been able to kind of go on and help other people through. I have a song called Gray that I wrote that
Mm.
was about addiction, and it's about, my experience basically from the perspective. Really, I wrote it about my brother, who was
Mm.
with me through all my addiction. He watched me kind of struggle through it, and he was one of the people that never gave up on me. And he has been through it with me.
Yeah.
He's seen me on the street. He's seen me, sleeping down in a sleeping bag on the river levee, and he's tried to get me back to a better way of life. So
Mm.
basically, I wrote that song about what it's like to watch somebody you love struggle, through addiction, and just wish that they would, live a better life. And so
Yeah.
that song basically has gone on to impact a lot of people, and I get emails and messages from people all the time, telling me that they relate from, a family member or loved one that they've had that has gone through a similar thing. So for me,
Mm.
that's like the ultimate form of catharsis or therapy for me, is like being able to help somebody else with that message.
Yeah.
It's kind of this full circle moment, to where it's
Yep.
like, wow, what I'm doing has some impact, and it's helping other people. It's also helping me to stay clean and sober.
Yeah. That's great, man. I love that your brother, stayed by you, man, and stuck by you. And, when it's so isolating sometimes. We feel like we're so alone, but when we have those, couple people close to us that don't give up on us, man, that's, it's huge, and to your point of being impactful, I mean, gosh, I gotta believe that, that's the whole reason we're here, is to really serve and be of service and to use the gifts that God gave us to share
Yeah.
with other people. Like, period. Like, all the other stuff is just
Oh,
like, it's so meaningless at the end of the day. Like and
exactly.
gosh, yeah, like and so you're
With
writing,
without it.
yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
go ahead.
No, that's it. I want to hear what's your thoughts on that, or anything, just the God's gift to be able to share, like for you, music, just in writing and just being, sober, obviously, too, though.
Sure. Yeah, it is an incredible gift, man, and it's without. I loved what you said. Without that, that aspect of it, it is meaningless. It's just kind of like self
Hmm.
gratification, and I feel like there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there that make art or music or movies or whatever, for that purpose of basically,
Yep.
this kind of like self gratification, and I feel like the more in tune I've gotten with myself and with, my own writing, I look back on other songs and I'm like, was I writing this song because I really believed in it, or was I writing this
Mm.
because I thought it sounded cool at the moment, or this or that? And it's helped me to kind of be a more honest songwriter in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. Um, Having that kind of higher mission, like you said,
Yep.
like a calling to serve something greater than yourself. Yeah, without that, for me, it's like there would be no point
Yeah.
to what I'm doing. It really
Yeah.
is. It's at the end of the day, that's the reason, for sure.
Yeah, amen to that, man. And I've gone through my own like ups and downs with that. Even we've been doing the podcast. I launched this in 2014. So we just hit 10 years of just consistent,
Wow,
guests. And yeah, it's been a cool road. It's helped keep me sober. It's, I've got to
that's awesome,
just,
man.
yeah, thank you, bro. I appreciate it. And like, I have had those times though where, you wonder, why am I doing this? Or what is this even for? I put a lot of time and effort into it. And at the end of the day, it
Mm.
always comes back to like serving others. And and it's not like highlighting myself, in that, and that's what I've learned, because there have been times when I've done that, no doubt. I'm sure same with you. Like you said, you reflected on a song and been like, why was I writing this? Was it for this or that? But as you
Sure.
get a little older, man, you start to realize like what's important. And
Mm.
family, friends, being of service, and then sharing those gifts, man, is crucial. So thank you for doing that too, man. And I hope I get to see you
Oh
play
man.
live sometime, man. That would be awesome. I'd love to come out to like Catalyst or somewhere in Sac or
Oh
something, man. I
yeah.
know yeah, that'd be great.
We just did our big West Coast swing that we do every year. Um, so we just missed you, man. But the Catalyst, we just played it again, and that's
Nice.
one of my all-time favorite one of my all-time favorite, shows that I've
Yeah.
played, is that room, because I used to work at that room
Really?
years ago. Yeah, I did security there years ago for a
Wow.
brief period of time, and some of my actually my first show I ever went to was at the Catalyst, and so
Nice.
I got my start. There's a bartender. Shout out to Clifford at the Catalyst. He used to let me set up and play at the upstairs bar where it was really just a couple pool tables and a bar.
Yeah.
And that was where like the old timers would go and hang out, during the day and drink and play pool. And he would let me go up there with my guitar, and he called it the Lone Star Lounge, and he let me play country stuff. And then he started booking me there, and that's really where I started playing as Jesse
Really?
Daniels. So now to go back to the Catalyst and play the main room and to sell it out,
That
it's a
is
dream
cool.
come true. I can't tell you how much it means. But yeah, we got to get you out there to a show, man. California.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that story too, man. That's so classic right there. You worked there, probably had like, man, I'd love to play here, and then just you're showing up,
Always.
like showing up, showing up, showing up, and like, see, and that's another great example. Like those out there listening, like it doesn't mean you have to go be a musician or a podcaster or whatever it is that you're doing. When you show up and you're passionate about something, and you want to be of service, like God will put people in your life and he will line things up when you don't even expect it. It will just do the next right thing,
Oh yeah.
and positive stuff happens, man. And that's a great example of that right there.
I got
Um,
chills when you're saying that, man, because
man,
that is so true. It really is.
it is, dude. That's a great story. I probably should have done this at the beginning, and let's see, where are we at? We got about 10. Are you good for like 10 or 15 more minutes? Is that cool?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay, awesome. I
absolutely.
just want to be respectful of time and stuff. I probably should have done this at the beginning, but we got to chopping it up, and I was really just enjoying what we were chatting about. But like, can you just give us like, a quick rundown, or I mean, go detailed as you want, or whatever, however you want to do it, but just like kind of like what it was like before, like what happened. And then I would really love to hear, and share with those out there listening, what was that moment of clarity? And I think you talked a little bit about it before, but maybe dive in a little deeper, like when you were just like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like I gotta
Sure.
stop.
You got it. Yeah, I'll kind of just do like a summarized version. I'll go back. Yeah, like you said, you did as well. I came from a broken home, and a lot of, family turmoil and stuff like that. And so I started drinking and, smoking weed at a pretty early age. I was about 11, 12 when I really started, drinking, and then started smoking after. Um, all through high school, it was really, partying was just a really big distraction for me. It wasn't like it was for the other kids. It was like an escape for me,
Mm,
to where I would get, old homeless gentlemen to buy me, a couple 40 ounces, when I was, 14, 15. And, I'd drink one at night before I went to bed, and I'd have one in the morning to get me through
mm,
the day at school. It got to that point where I was just kind of self-medicating with alcohol. And, fast forward, I was playing in the bands and stuff, and kind of managing that. And, I got introduced, I think I was about 16, to painkillers,
mm,
16, 17 to painkillers, and then I had experimented with other drugs, like, obviously California's got a big, crystal meth problem.
Yeah.
So that was around where I grew up. Uh, but when I got introduced to the painkillers, that was really what quickly grabbed me, and I think what I liked about it so much was that it's such a kind of a devastatingly effective drug for masking your emotions. Just you
Mm.
feel completely numb.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was like, man, I found the thing that works, for how I feel, and I just kind of chased that until I got introduced to heroin, and then it was cheaper and more, readily available, so I started doing that. A friend of mine showed me how to mix that with crystal meth and start shooting it, and we started
Wow.
doing that, and then it was after that point it was like just off to the races,
Mm.
and it was a very fast track to that lifestyle of being homeless, being in and out of jail, rehab programs, ripping off your friends,
Mm.
burning bridges, all of that stuff. So I feel I've got a line in a song called "Son of the San Lorenzo" where I said I did a life's worth of living in a short block of time. And really, it was about a 5 year period, but for me, it felt like 50 years, worth of those, types of struggles.
Yeah.
And so I had just gone back and forth with that, with different, geographic moves. I'd tried to move different places, and I'd always end up coming back, and it kind of followed me wherever I went. And so basically, I got to the point where I was playing music, as Jesse Daniel. I was writing country music, and I had dabbled in sobriety, here and there, uh, but I was just kind of barely holding it together enough to not be as bad as I used to be, but
Mm.
playing gigs and traveling around. And that's when I met Jody, my fiance, and she and I met at a country music festival that I was playing at, and she was working there. And I had never met somebody before who was like her. If to anybody who's met like their soulmate or their person, or even just somebody in life that really helps kind of complete you in a way, that's how it was when I met her. So I continued drinking and then got back into using the drugs basically while Jody and I were together.
Mm.
And it got so bad to where she found out about it. Those things never stay hidden when you're trying to hide being a heroin
Yeah.
addict. That's you know and she pretty much gave me this ultimatum without really giving me one. She was like, if you have so much potential in your life, and it's hard to watch you not see that, and I can't stay with
Mm.
you if you're not going to do that. So she told me, if you're going to try to do this for real and stay sober and work on your career as a musician and do this, I'll stick around, and if you don't, I'm gone. So
Mm.
I just
Wow.
it was the first time, and I've had thousands of those types of things where people have told me, or the police have told me, or the judge has told me, or rehabs or whatever. Uh, but for whatever reason, this losing Jody, it was like that was the most
Mm.
scared I'd ever been, because I really didn't know how I got back to that point, of being back addicted to heroin. It was like it all just happened in the snap of a finger. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. That
Mm.
was really the moment when it all came down, and so I kicked, detoxed cold turkey on our couch of the place that we were renting, and that was the 7th of January in
Wow.
2017. And so
Can I
yeah,
propose
it's
a
not been
song?
been in.
Can I propose a
Oh yeah,
song idea real quick for you? It's called "Losing Jody," and
sure.
then it just, and then it's
Oh,
this. It's so legit. All right, when you said that, I'm like, "Losing Jody." Oh, that's a song right there, bro. Okay. Anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't want to forget.
I'm gonna
I
write I'm gonna
love it.
write that
Yeah,
down right here.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Keep going though.
You
Keep
get
going.
co-writer, you get co-writer credit on that one.
Right on.
Yeah, but there's that was really like the pivotal moment for me was basically Jody had found my stash. She found out that,
Mm,
why I had no money, why things had been going really messed up for us the past few months. And, that's traumatizing for a person who has never been around that type of stuff, for like an
yeah.
intravenous drug user. That's pretty hardcore to a person who's never, uh, to most people, to just about everybody. So, I was ashamed, um, scared to lose her. And really, it was like kind of the kick in the ass that I really needed to look at myself and be like, what are you doing? This is, yeah, every time you do that, you're rolling the dice on dying. Um, and I just kind of looked at it and really, for the first time, in really plain terms, and decided to choose her, to choose love and life, and to try to, pursue making music. And I think because my career in music, like, it has gone hand in hand with my sobriety, that's been a big tool for me, in
Yeah.
um, staying clean and sober. Because my fans, the people that come to my shows, they know I'm clean and sober, even if they're not. And I feel like there's this kind of built-in accountability that I have,
Yeah.
as my identity as a clean and sober musician. um, so I'm very grateful for that. It's
Mm,
something that's special, and it's kind of helped to craft my life to where it's at today.
yeah. Love it, man. Thanks so much for sharing that too, man. I know that's some personal stuff and very important too at the same time that other people hear that. I think sharing that kind of stuff gives people hope and lets people know that like, hey, there is another way, there's another way. And
Oh yeah.
I love too that like, that what you just said about your fan base and fans that come out, that love your music, they love the energy, but they respect the fact that you're clean and sober. And I am 100% certain that there are people now and there will be people in the future that you influence along the way that will one day make that decision and go, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to try that. I think I'm going to change a couple of things here,
Man,
you know?
you're right. You're right. There have been a lot of people, and I've seen it really in this past year more than I had
Mm,
ever seen it before. And I think it's just because, the music is getting out there to more people. But I've seen a lot of people in this past year at the merch table. I'll go out and talk to people, and a lot of guys, and men and women, have come up to me and said, "Hey, I've got 3 months,
mm,
and your song
that's
Gray was
cool.
like the reason why I decided, or hey, I've got a year, or whatever amount of time." But kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier with the higher calling,
Yeah. Yeah.
of
The purpose.
God, or whatever somebody wants to call it. Your higher power. I feel that that's my calling, is to. I think that gives everything that I went through and put others through some purpose, and some meaning,
Yeah.
to be able to turn it around and to use it as this tool to better other people's lives, and it also betters my life. So it's like the ultimate win-win. And yeah, it's just
Yeah.
powerful, man. That's the power
Well,
of it.
it's funny how too I love these conversations. They're just raw and organic, and they circle back a lot of the time. And I just, when we first started talking, you said something about when I'm weak, I'm strong. That's the Apostle Paul right there. Said it himself, biblical. Like when I'm weak, when I can share that my weakness, when I can acknowledge it,
Mm,
let it out, let it go. That gives me strength. And not only does it give me strength, but more importantly, it gives other people strength. So like that's
wow.
so important when when we hear, especially as men, we're in a culture where and I think it's shifting definitely, but it definitely used
Mm,
to be like, you don't cry, you don't show emotion, you don't talk about
sure.
stuff, head down, work hard. Like, and I get, man, there's a lot of good qualities in some of that stuff, no doubt. Like, be a hard worker.
Stoicism and whatnot. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, exactly, exactly. But at the end of the day, like, man, that can lead to a lot of like problems in life later on as we become
Yeah,
men and like start to grow and try to have healthy relationships and all that stuff, man. So it's just so
totally.
important, man, that you're sharing this stuff, like not only through your music, but even, coming on a podcast like this. And I greatly appreciate it. And I know others out there listening do too. Um,
Man, I think
s-
it's so cool that you have a podcast that you've had for 10 years that is, based talk about a higher calling,
mm,
that's something that's helping people all the time. So it's an honor to be a part of it, and I want to thank whoever, shouted my name out and wanted to get me on here because it's been a good, time talking with you. And this is really the kind of thing that I want to do more of, is spreading
mm,
that message. And
yeah,
it's hard to do when you're not doing it through the right channels, it gets kind of
yeah,
lost. But this is the perfect channel to reach people that either need help with sobriety, or they're interested in sobriety, or they've been sober. It's a great thing. So thank you, man.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I really enjoyed, this chat so far. It's been great to meet you. And I will extend you and your team to an open invitation, man. If you want to come back on later on, this year or next, I mean, whenever, man, just let me know. It'd be happy to have you
Oh,
and
I'd
catch
love to.
up. And yeah, so we'll keep that line of communication open for sure. Tell us
Let's
about, I
make it
know
happen.
you just said that you had, I'm sorry too. I noticed, I hope not trying to talk over you. I think there's a tiny delay on our back and forth. So it's just like messing, me up a little bit. So don't mean to talk over you, but, um, well, you mentioned earlier, you just got done with, the West Coast kind of part of your tour. What's next? What do those tour dates look like? I know I mentioned you have an upcoming new album coming out. Tell us a little bit about that and then where folks can find you at.
Yeah, man. I've got a whole bunch of tour dates. We just did the West Coast, so we did Arizona, California, whole bunch of California. I always play California the most because that's my
Yeah.
home state. Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, and then we went back to Texas where we're at now. And
Nice.
now we're about to do the Midwest and the South. And later this summer, we're jumping on the road with a guy named Charles Wesley Godwin,
Mm,
who's a great country singer. He's really blowing up. Um, and then we're going to be doing the East Coast later this year. Also going back up to Montana. We're kind of just zigzagging all across the United
yeah.
States this year a little bit. But yeah, my new record, it's called Countin The Miles. It's coming out on June 7th. And I've always produced, records of my own. I've co-produced them with people, but this is my first record ever doing it, 100% solely myself.
Mm,
And so I'm very proud of
nice.
this one. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone into it. And,
Yeah.
there's some songs that are, very personal and kind of autobiographical, as well as just some fun, really fun music, so the band on it's incredible. Can't wait for everybody to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Congrats on the production process too. I know that's a ton of work. So I'm super excited to hear it coming out. And gosh, that's a month from today actually, as we're recording this. It's May 7th. So you got 1 month to go till that record officially drops. And we'll be sure to put
That's
links to
crazy.
them. Yeah, I know, right? I just realized that too. I'm like, dang, 30 days. That's
Time's
nuts, man.
flying, man.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question for you, and then we'll wrap up. To someone out there listening, Jesse, maybe they're
Mhm.
struggling right now. They don't know what to do. They want to get some help. They want to quit. Maybe they just want someone to listen. Any advice or anything you might give to someone out there who's having a tough time?
Man, I just say, don't stop trying. Don't quit trying to get out of your situation, or
Mm,
to stay sober, or to better yourself, and if I could recommend a book, like I said, that Atomic Habits book helped me a lot. Um, obviously I had been clean and sober when I read it, but a lot of things that I feel like are so plainly obvious that you almost overlook them in early recovery.
yeah.
Like I might be butchering this. I can't remember if which book it's in, but it's basically, building self-esteem through esteemable acts, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, I can't recall exactly what that's from, but I know that that has been so true for me, and just building those little things, those little wins every day, each
Yeah.
day that you don't pick up a drug or a drink, or if you're trying to quit smoking, or if you're trying to eat better, whatever you're trying to do in life to better yourself. You can't eat an elephant at once. You got to just break it down into this
Mm.
small little thing. And then when you start building it up, before you know it, you're going to have a week, and then 2 weeks,
Yep.
3 weeks, a month, and then 6 months goes by. And then before you know it, you're at a year. And, hard times are going to happen, but it will get, for me, it has gotten progressively easier to maintain my sobriety, as far as
Yeah.
that goes. Life has not gotten easier. Life's always going to be hard, but the way that you deal with it, you get way better at dealing with stuff, and that's what gets easier. So don't give up. Don't ever stop trying that everyday approach of just a little bit more work every day, and it's going to compound. It's going to add up, and that's exactly what I did. And know that it's possible.
Yeah. Thanks, man. That's great. Great advice, man. Don't give up. Keep going. Reach out. You ain't alone. That's for sure. And lots of people and
No, not at
resources
all.
out there. So Jesse, man, thank you so much, man. It's been great to have you on the podcast today. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Share the podcast with a friend. You can connect us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. I hope something spoke to you today. Peace, love, and respect. And we'll put all of Jesse's contact info, jessedanielmusic.com, everything else in the show notes so it's easier for you to find. Once again, peace, love, respect, and keep your blood clean. All right, man. Good stuff, dude. Let me
Man, thank you for having me. That was awesome.
yeah.